that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, and in doing so violated federal and state law.
Now at 5, breaking news. Bombshell findings about Governor Cuomo. Investigators say he sexually assaulted 11 women and oversaw a toxic culture of fear and intimidation in his office. Tonight, the governor is pushing back against the findings. We also hear from President Biden.
I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances.
We have live team coverage at the governor's mansion and the state capitol. That's where calls for the governor to step down are growing louder tonight. Live at 5 begins right now.
From WNYT Albany, News Channel 13 Live at 5 begins right now.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Elaine Houston.
And good Tuesday evening. I'm Mark Mulholland. We begin with breaking news we've been covering all day. The investigation is complete.
New York Attorney General Tish James says that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed almost a dozen women, including employees in his office, violating state and federal laws. Throughout the next 90 minutes, we'll bring you complete team coverage of the day's developments. We'll tell you what's included in the 170-page report from the Attorney General. Kumi Tucker is live in Albany, detailing specific allegations against the governor. Sabrina Dami is outside the governor's mansion with what the governor is saying about the report, and Dan Levy is gathering reaction from state legislators. But first, new reaction from Washington. Back in March, President Biden has said that Governor Cuomo should resign if the allegations were true. Now that the investigation is complete, what does the president think? Here's what he just said during a news conference at the White House.
Back in March, you said that if the investigation confirms the allegations against Governor Cuomo, then he should resign. So will you now call on him to resign, given the investigators said the 11 women were credible?
I stand by that statement.
Are you now calling on him to resign?
Yes.
And if he doesn't resign, do you believe he should be impeached and removed from office?
Let's take one thing at a time here.
And we will have more reaction as we get it.
New York's top law enforcement officer says Governor Andrew Cuomo is a serial sexual harasser. Attorney General Tish James announcing today that Cuomo sexually harassed 11 current and former state employees. We begin our team coverage with the findings of the Attorney General's independent investigators.
The independent investigation has concluded that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women, and in doing so violated federal and state law.
State Attorney General Tish James announcing the findings of an independent investigation into alleged sexual harassment by the governor.
Specifically, the investigation found that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed current and former New York State employees by engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching and making numerous offensive comments of a suggestive and sexual nature.
James and lead investigators June Kim, a former U.S. attorney, and Ann Clark, a lawyer who specializes in workplace law, detailed the results of their 5-month investigation and offered up this 170-page report. They interviewed 179 people and reviewed 74,000 pieces of evidence. 11 total complainants, 9 of whom are or were state employees, including some who had regular contact with the governor and others who only met him once.
But all of them experienced harassing conduct from the governor. Some suffered through unwanted touching and grabbing of their most intimate body parts.
I've perused much of the 170-page report. We've posted it on our website, WNYT.com, and it reveals more tonight about the accusations against Governor Cuomo, including his alleged harassment of a state trooper assigned to protect him.
Kumi Tucker now continues our team coverage. She's live at the Capitol. Kumi.
Elaine, one of the investigators appointed by the Attorney General spoke about the interactions with women who include a New York State trooper assigned to Cuomo's detail.
Attorney Ann Clark identified one current employee as Executive Assistant Number 1.
On November 16th, 2020, in the Executive Mansion, the governor hugged Executive Assistant Number 1 and reached under her blouse to grab her breast.
Clark says several times the governor inappropriately touched a state trooper assigned to his protection unit.
In an elevator, while standing behind the trooper, he ran his finger from her neck down her spine and said, "Hey you, Another time, she was standing holding the door open for the governor. As he passed, he took his open hand and ran it across her stomach from her belly button to the hip where she keeps her gun.
Clark said the trooper told them that she felt completely violated. The investigator detailed inappropriate touching and a widespread pattern of unwanted hugs and kisses and touching.
Conduct that is not just old-fashioned, affectionate behavior, as he and some of his staff members would have it, but unlawful sex-based harassment.
Clark also said there were comments that crossed the line. Now that the AG has concluded her investigation, could this lead to criminal charges?
Our work is concluded, and the document is now public, and the matter is civil in nature. And does not have any criminal consequences.
I will state that it's our understanding that for the young woman whose breast was groped, that the Albany Police Department already has a report about that.
Albany Police, however, told us today that there was never a complaint filed and no active investigation.
All the information is fully documented in the report, and any prosecutors or police departments can look at the evidence and determine if they want to take further action.
And the Attorney General says that she has now given her report to the New York State Assembly for their investigation. And coming up new at 6, you'll hear from the New York State Troopers Union. Back to you, Mark and Elaine.
All right, Kumi, thank you. And meantime, we are hearing directly from the governor today regarding the Attorney General's findings. He put out what appeared to be a pre-taped statement.
Sabrina Dami is live outside the governor's mansion. Sabrina, any sign of the governor there?
Good evening, Mark and Elaine. No sign of him here today. Our Newschannel 13 team has been here outside of the governor's mansion all day today, but we did get just hours ago that pre-taped statement from the governor, and I'm going to break down key elements of it throughout our newscast this evening, starting with his response to the most serious allegations so far against him, that he groped a woman while inside his personal office here at the governor's mansion. The governor today in his statement flat out denied doing that. However, he did say that woman, who still has not been identified, plans to file a lawsuit against him. He also talked quite a bit about his open behavior of hugging and kissing people throughout the years. Many of the women who filed formal complaints said that made them uncomfortable, including Anna Rush. You'll recall that picture on the front page of the New York Times with the governor's hands on her cheeks at a wedding. In the governor's response today, he showed a series of pictures, a slideshow of all the times that he's done this in the past, hugging and kissing people on the cheeks. It was rather bizarre, a presentation of pictures of the governor hugging and kissing people over the course of the years. He says he's done this his whole life. Here's what he had to say.
Indeed, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me using the exact same gesture. I do it with everyone, black and white, young and old, straight and LGBTQ, powerful people, friends, strangers. I now understand that there are generational or cultural perspectives that, frankly, I hadn't fully appreciated.
You saw a little bit of snapshot of that slideshow he included in his presentation today. He also spent quite a few minutes talking about one accuser in particular, Charlotte Bennett. She's been one of the most outspoken so far. Hear what he had to say about her and why he's apologizing to her. That's coming up at 5:30. Meantime, the calls for the governor to resign are growing louder. You heard from President Biden just moments ago. Also, we are hearing from the state capitol, but the loudest calls perhaps are coming from Washington tonight. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand released a joint statement this afternoon saying, quote, "No elected official is above the law. The people of New York deserve better leadership in the governor's office, and we continue to believe that the governor should resign." My colleague Dan Levy has been gathering reaction at the state capitol from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and Dan joins us live from the state capitol right now. Dan, good evening to you.
Sabrina, good evening. You know what lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are saying here tonight at the Capitol is not surprising, given the circumstances. They're saying it is time for the governor to pack up, giddy up, and get out of Dodge. And that is a consensus here at the Capitol. If Governor Cuomo thought he'd find any friends in the legislature after the Attorney General's damning report, he would be sadly mistaken. The reaction, the words, the sentiment that were being tossed around here today at the Capitol by both Republicans and Democrats include repulsive, shameful, and disgraceful. Senate Minority Leader Rob Ortt called the AG's report sobering and says it confirms the toxic and hostile work environment. And Democratic Assemblyman Phil Steck of Colony says the report amplifies the reasons he thinks Governor Cuomo needs to resign. And then there's Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara from Rotterdam, also a Democrat. He declared, now there's proof the governor is a serial harasser, insulter, and intimidator, and he should put his ego aside and resign. Further reaction was swift and right along the same line.
We're past the press releases and the tweets calling on him to resign. People of New York and these women deserve and demand action. That is what we're calling on the New York State Assembly to move forward with those articles of impeachment.
And to be honest with you, the pattern of behavior, the harassment, which violated state and federal laws, is very disturbing. I truly believe the governor should step down. If the governor does not step down, I am ready to join with my colleagues to vote to move forward with the Assembly proceedings.
He should resign because he can't function effectively as a governor. But second of all, he should never, under any circumstances, be renominated by the Democratic Party.
Phil Steck happens to be a member of the Assembly Judiciary Committee, who tells me he expects the committee to meet early next week to discuss the way forward. That's the latest live from the Capitol. Dan Levy, News Channel 13, with coverage you can trust. Mark and Elaine, back to you.
Dan and Sabrina, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, who is next in line if the governor steps down or is removed from office, is weighing in tonight.
She posted this statement on Twitter within the last 2 hours. She says sexual harassment is unacceptable in any workplace and certainly not in public service. The AG's investigation has documented repulsive and unlawful behavior by the governor towards multiple women. I believe these brave women and admire their courage for coming forward.
She added, no one is above the law. Under the New York Constitution, the Assembly will now determine the next steps. Because lieutenant governors, she tweeted, stand next in the line of succession, it would not be appropriate to comment further on the process at this moment.
The Attorney General says that the 170-page report on this investigation details the inner workings of the governor's office.
His alleged harassment of multiple women, including retaliation against one of them, are examples of what's described as a toxic work environment.
Jerry Gretzinger is here now in the studio with that part of the story. Jerry.
Elaine and Mark, there have been stories circulating for years that Governor Cuomo was ruthless, that anyone he perceived as having crossed him or simply disagreed with him faced retaliation and harsh consequences, and that he fostered an environment of fear and intimidation. The findings released today support all of that. Attorney General Tish James summarized the findings like this.
Governor Cuomo's administration fostered a toxic workplace that enabled harassment and created a hostile work environment where staffers did not feel comfortable coming forward with complaints.
Attorney and independent investigator June Kim says they discovered common disturbing themes after hearing from 179 witnesses and reviewing tens of thousands of documents regarding the workplace culture of the Cuomo administration.
Words that witnesses have used repeatedly to describe it include toxic, hostile, abusive. Others use words like fear, intimidation, bullying. It was a culture where you could not say no to the governor. And if you upset him or his senior staff, you would be written off, cast aside, or worse.
Kim read quotes from text messages staffers had exchanged, including this one sent by a senior staffer.
Hopefully, when this is all done, people will realize the culture, even outside of the sexual harassment stuff, is not something you can get away with. You can't berate and terrify people 24/7.
Kim says the fear and intimidation provided protection for the governor's penchant for sexual harassment.
This culture made it all the more difficult, if not impossible, for complainants to report the harassment from which they were suffering, particularly when the harasser was the governor of the state of New York.
Well, the governor had a response to all of this, too, basically saying a job in his office is demanding and not for everyone. More on that coming up at 6. Mark?
Jerry, thank you. News Channel 13's coverage of today's developments continue on air and online. On our website, you'll find the Attorney General's report, the governor's reaction, and the timeline from news of the first allegation in December through today. Just go to WNYT.com. The Attorney General's report is in. The sexual harassment allegations against Governor Cuomo have been found credible. What we can expect to happen next.
Plus, a detailed look into the sexual harassment law that the governor signed about 2 years ago.
And later on Live at 5:30, an Olympic comeback. Simone Biles returns to competition on balance beam.
Coverage you can trust. With Elaine Houston, Mark Mulholland, Chief Meteorologist Bob Kovacic, and Meteorologist Paul Cayano. This is News Channel 13, live at 5.